Welcome back to Evolution Timelapse, the channel where time stands still and the world does not. Today we travel to a city that, for nearly 3,000 years, has stood at the crossroads of an Arabian oasis. A city that began as a quiet date palm valley named Yathrib and became, in a single September day in the year 622, the most important place in the spiritual life of nearly 2 billion people on Earth. We lock our camera on the slope above this valley. We do not move it for the next 2,900 years. And we watch what happens. In the autumn of 1916, a man named Fakhri Pasha looked out over the city of Medina and decided he was not going to leave. He had been sent here 2 years earlier by the Ottoman Sultan, given command of a desert garrison at the very end of the railway line that the Sultan Abdul Hamid had built to connect Damascus to the Prophet's city. Fakhri was a career officer, a quiet, devout man, deeply religious, deeply stubborn. He took his oath to defend the holy city seriously, perhaps too seriously, because what happened next is one of the strangest, longest, and most extraordinary sieges in the entire 20th century, and almost nobody outside the Middle East has ever heard of it. The Arab Revolt had just begun. Sharif Hussein of Mecca, encouraged by British promises and supplied with British gold, had declared independence from the Ottoman Empire. His sons led tribal armies down the coast and into the desert. The young British officer, T.E. Lawrence, the man the world would later call Lawrence of Arabia, rode with them. Their first major target was Medina. They expected it to fall in weeks. It did not. Fakhri Pasha closed the gates. He stationed his Ottoman regulars and his Arab loyalists along the city walls Suleiman the Magnificent had built 4 centuries earlier. He dug new trenches. He fortified the Hejaz railway station, the modern symbol of Ottoman pride. And he refused to surrender. Lawrence and his Arab forces could not take the city by direct assault. The garrison was too well dug in, the walls too strong. So they did the next best thing. They blew up the railway. Section by section, mile by mile over the next 2 years, T.E. Lawrence personally directed the destruction of the line that had once connected Damascus to Medina in a matter of days. Soon the city was completely cut off. No supplies could reach it from the north. No reinforcements, no food, no medicine. Inside the city, Fakhri Pasha began to ration. First the flour, then the rice, then the dates. He ordered his soldiers to eat locusts. When the locusts ran out, they ate the carcasses of camels, then the camels' bones, then the leather of their own boots. Disease swept the population. Hundreds died. Fakhri buried them and kept fighting. By 1917, the world outside Medina was changing dramatically. Jerusalem fell to the British. Baghdad fell. Damascus fell. The Russian Tsar was overthrown. America entered the war. The Ottoman Empire itself was collapsing. And in October 1918, the empire signed the Armistice of Mudros, surrendering. The war was officially over. Every Ottoman garrison from the Balkans to Mesopotamia laid down its arms. Every single one, except one. Fakhri Pasha refused to receive the order. He did not believe it. Or perhaps he believed it, but could not accept that the Sultan's command to defend the city of the Prophet could be canceled by anyone. So he kept fighting. The war ended in November 1918. Fakhri Pasha kept fighting. December came. January came. Inside Medina, his soldiers were now skeletons in uniforms. They had eaten everything that could be eaten. They were drinking rainwater from rooftop cisterns. They were burying their dead in mass graves on the slopes of al-Baqi Cemetery. And still, Fakhri refused to leave. He sent a famous message during these final months, a message that has become legendary in Turkish military history. He said, "I am ordered to defend Medina, and I will defend it as long as I have 1 bullet, 1 piece of bread, and 1 drop of blood." Finally, on the night of January 9, 1919, 72 days after the armistice, Fakhri's own officers acted. They had watched their commander order the burial of more soldiers than they could count. They had watched the city's children starve. They knew the empire he was defending no longer existed, so they arrested him. They tied his hands. They handed him over to the Arab forces waiting outside the walls, and the longest siege of the First World War was finally over. Fakhri Pasha was taken as a prisoner first to Egypt, then to Malta, where the British held him for nearly 2 years. When he was finally released in 1921, he returned not to Constantinople, but to the new Turkish Republic of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. He spent the rest of his life as a quiet man, declining all interviews, refusing to speak about the siege, refusing to be celebrated. He died in 1948 in obscurity in a small town in Anatolia. But here is the thing that has stayed with us at Evolution Timelapse. Before he surrendered, Fakhri Pasha did one last thing. He took the most precious sacred relics from the Prophet's mosque, items connected to the Prophet himself, items that had been venerated for 1,300 years, and he packed them carefully into wooden crates. He loaded those crates onto the very last train that ever left Medina, before the railway was destroyed forever. And he sent them north, north through the burning desert, north through the bombed-out stations, north through the collapsing empire, all the way to Constantinople. Those relics are still there today. They sit in the Topkapı Palace in modern Istanbul, in a special room called the Chamber of the Sacred Relics, behind glass, lit dimly, visited by millions every year. The Prophet's sword, the Prophet's footprint, strands of his beard, the keys of the Kaaba, all of them saved by Fakhri Pasha on the last train out of the Prophet's city, in the last days of an empire that did not yet know it was already dead. That is the kind of story this city has. Not just one, not just 100, thousands of them. And our camera saw all of them from above without moving once. A word from us at Evolution Timelapse before we end. We have made many videos on this channel about cities, but Medina is different. Medina is the only city in the world we know of where the entire urban identity, the streets, the architecture, the population, the very air, was rewritten by a single arrival on a single afternoon. In September of the year 622, a man on a tired camel rode through the southern gate of a town called Yathrib. And before the sun set on that day, the town no longer existed by that name. It became Madinat al-Nabi, the city of the Prophet. The two Arab tribes that had been killing each other for 120 years stopped almost overnight. The three Jewish tribes that had ruled the oasis for 2 centuries lived through profound transformation. The city's center of gravity shifted from clan compounds to a single, humble mosque made of palm trunks and mud. And from that mosque, an entire civilization began. We at this channel are not religious storytellers. We are not theologians. We make videos about time, about how time changes places. But what we have seen in making this episode is something almost no other city on earth offers. A moment that historians can pinpoint to a single afternoon, after which everything about a place was permanently and irreversibly different. And the camera we put on that slope has watched ever since what came next. The mosques, the caliphs, the fires, the dome, the lava, the Ottoman walls, the Hejaz railway, the siege, the Saudi conquest, the bombs, the pandemic, the pilgrims, always, always the pilgrims. 3,000 years of history, one quiet valley between 2 volcanic plateaus, one green dome at the center of it all. We hope you stayed with us through every frame. We hope you learned something you did not know. And we hope, wherever you are watching this from, whatever you believe, that you take a moment now to remember that every single one of those tiny silhouettes in our time lapse was a person who lived and loved and died and was buried in this earth. The camera does not show their faces, but they were here. They were all here. Thank you for watching Evolution Timelapse. If this episode moved you, subscribe, because next week we lock our camera on another city, another civilization, another 2 or 3 or 4,000 years. Drop a like. Leave us a comment with one word, just one, for what you felt watching this. And share this video with someone who needs to see what time can do. Until next time, take care of each other. See you in the next millennium.